We just launched the registration. I'll be sending around the link. March 13th, Friday evening. Friday.
Okay, we ready? Stevie, are we good to go on your end? Is there, I mean, I can just go right into this? Okay, perfect. Ready, Mike? Okay. All right, good evening. It's 7:07 PM on Monday, February 9th, 2026. I'd like to call to order the Village of Brookfield Committee of the Whole meeting. Mike, can we have a roll call for the committee meeting, please?
Trustee Ketchmark.
Here.
Trustee Whitehead.
Here.
Trustee Hendricks.
Here.
Trustee Naramatsu.
Here.
Trustee Gilhooly.
Here.
Trustee Kaluzny.
Here.
President Garvey.
Here. All right, thank you, everyone. We have one item for discussion of branding and identity plan, RFP, the RFP for that. Bob, are you going to do the presentation, or? Bob, no?
Noah and I are going to do this.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
This was an item we talked about at the budget workshop, and now we're talking about going for the RFP, so.
So tonight, we're going to do a brief summary of the RFP, as well as get some input from the board on the composition of a working committee that will be assigned to this initiative as we move forward. And just to reiterate, this project was budgeted in the 2026 budget through the hotel motel tax fund. So currently, the village has several logos that it uses across all kinds of departments. I mean, this is a selection of them and not necessarily all of them. And the principal logo, which also serves as the village seal, has been in existence since 1962. It was designed by the village manager at the time. He included all of the iconography in that seal, all tied to events that took place in 1961 and 62. So that seal is basically frozen in amber from the mid-60s, or not even the mid-60s. And that's not the only one. A year later, in 1963, a committee that was actually not, it wasn't a village government committee, it was a committee outside of village government, created the Brookfield flag based on the seal that was created by the village manager. And the flag, which is behind the board, the white flag there, is shown on the screen here. Yes, it's in a different font. It's got stars around it. Don't know where the stars came from, because I actually found an article about the commissioning of that village flag today in 1963, and it didn't have the stars. So I don't know when those came into existence. We have this full color version of the village seal. I'm also not sure when the colors came into play, maybe when the flag came into play, and I don't know why those colors were chosen either. The Parks and Recreation logo was created a few years ago by a former recreation director. It incorporates the village seal, but again, this is like the police logo and the fire logos, which do a job. They were created without any sort of intention with respect to what actually already exists and kind of what we're trying to portray. And then you see we have the Brookfield Shops logo that was created strictly for the Brookfield Shops last year. Again, it doesn't have any relation to any Brookfield branding or the existing seal. So in the board packet, which with the memo, there is the draft RFP in there as well. We are going to be requesting, hopefully, with your consent, the proposals from vendors for a branding and identity plan for the village. And in this plan, we intend to request a new village logo, a tagline for the village, a uniform palette of colors, and we intend to have this sort of master sort of logo brand to actually also incorporate sub-brands that can be used as well. We'll get into that a little bit in a couple of seconds. And what's delivered by the vendor that it's chosen can be then used across all kinds of media within the village, from our e-newsletters, our print newsletters, wayfinding signage, clothing, special event banners, stationery, anything that would carry a village logo this new branding would be used for. And also that deliverable will give us a style guide on how to use it, what fonts to use, what colors, and all that will be provided. So we can have some consistency across the board of how we are portraying the village. And within the main branding of the village, we are going to ask them for sub-brands for each of the village business districts, 8 Corners, downtown, Ogden Avenue. This is something that was done similarly in Park Ridge. If you take a look, the Park Ridge recently went through this process. On the far left is the logo that was chosen, and then they also used the same fonts, the same kind of color palettes, but had individual identities for each of their business districts as well. So we're going to be sort of looking for that sort of arrangement too.
So this slide presents the tentative deadline based on the comments and suggestions from the board tonight. So the schedule is to release this RFP on Friday, February 20th, with responses due the following month on Friday, March 20th. The vendor will be selected at the April 13th Village Board meeting, and the kickoff meeting with the selected vendor will be held on the week of April 20th. After the vendor is selected, we expect this plan to take about a year to complete. While this project is taking place, staff will need to work with a selected group of external stakeholders to guide the process. Other municipalities that have done branding updates in recent years have solely gone through their Economic Development Commission equivalent. We believe that choosing members from a wide range of organizations and groups and 2 members of the village board to create one ad hoc committee during this tenure would be beneficial to get all different perspectives and voices. That's the presentation, but I'm more than happy to answer questions you guys may have.
Thank you for the presentation. Questions, comments from the board?
I've got, I love 95% of the presentation, of all of this. I love having an identity and a brand for Brookfield and all of what you've put together. But I would love to talk about the 5% that I'm not so sure about. It's the sub-branding for the sub-districts. I feel like for Chicago, it makes sense. You've got the Loop, you've got the Mag Mile. You want to be able to identify those areas. But we're 3 square miles. When we say, I'm going out to the street dance in downtown, well, people hear that and they say, oh, and which downtown? I would rather say, I'm going to the street dance in Brookfield, or I'm gonna go have dinner on Ogden. That could be any one of 25 towns. So I feel like having these sub-brands for these sub-districts confuses and complicates the issue, and is maybe counterproductive by taking away from the one single identity of saying, come to Brookfield, this is what Brookfield is. But I'd love to hear what the rest of the board has to say about that.
Maybe jumping on that a little bit, what do you do with the districts along 31st or Hollywood? how does that play into, I mean, I guess that's the overall part of the village, but you got a couple orphans in here.
So we chose those three because they are TIF districts, and those are our main locations. There are other business districts that occur in Park Ridge, but those are your three biggest ones. So we chose that based on the TIF district.
I think it could be worthwhile looking into, and if we don't end up wanting to adopt it, I think if you're having a vendor come in and propose different things, you know, is there a way to make it look unique with those, or make it look consistent with those concerns at play? I also want to note that there's 2 extra logos that you missed, which was the Conservation Commission logo and the Beautification Commission logo. All have their own logos, so there's even more.
Yeah.
And those are very naturey.
Imagine that.
But I think, you know, to the identity piece, trying to make something uniform that everyone is happy with and will adopt, including business districts, including commissions, including departments. I like the overall idea, and I'm excited about it.
I do
And it's been talked about forever, including the banners.
Right, I know. Banners, let's get started on that. I would contend that there is consistency here, like you said, with the fonts, you know, the color schemes, and just the overall feel, where it doesn't have to look exactly the same, but there's an overall feel where you know if, like for Park Ridge, like you know you're in Park Ridge if you see any of these, because, well, obviously they still have Park Ridge on the bottom, but, you know, so either the consistency in the name of the town being on there with the consistency in the colors and the fonts, I think it's doable. I would say though, like if you're just notwithstanding the logos for the commissions and things like that, I like the individual branding of the different parts of town, because they do have a different feel, whether you're on 31st Street or on Grand Avenue or on Broadway. Right? These do have a uniqueness to them, where maybe it deserves a little bit of its own, you know, its own shout out or branding.
If I
Sure.
could, yeah. I think this kind of speaks to Jennifer's point. My wife grew up in Park Ridge, and, you know, I have in-laws up there. I've only ever heard of Uptown. Like, South Park and North Park, I don't even know where they are. And I think that's kind of the point you're trying to make, where like it's Uptown, the Pickwick's there. I can tell you what's there, but I mean I get why they did that, and it's good. But I just think times I've been to Park Ridge, that's the only neighborhood I'm familiar with.
Is the idea that we're trying to build communities, or is it just to highlight the business districts? So it's not like we're trying to say, you know, the north side or Ogden neighborhood. It's more about, and we already have different banners, right, for different areas in the business districts.
Correct. We have different banner stylings and graphics depending on if you are on Ogden, downtown, Grand Boulevard, or Broadway 8 Corners. There are different styles, different designs. There's no cohesion in branding across those business fronts. I think within the branding and request to vendor to explore sub-branding, it is to create cohesion across those very different business districts. Ogden, for example, have our banners on our roadway lights that are much higher than our pedestrian poles in downtown, where our banners are located. Being able to align the use of those corridors with the visual branding is the goal in the sub-brands.
Okay.
Cohesion under one village umbrella and sub-outing those business districts to make sense under the village.
I think under that framework, I could get on board with that. I tend to agree with Jennifer on kind of trying to build community around these kind of sub-brands. But if we're just trying to align the different kinds of banners we use to highlight, to be specific to those areas because they're of the way that the poles are or whatever, I think I like that idea.
I do want to also note that Berwyn, through the Berwyn Development Corporation, so not run through the city, did do a branding campaign specific to the business districts, specifically along Cermak and Ogden, and those are designed, again, with uniformity, and you're knowing that you're in Berwyn, but along Ogden, you have the design reflects more of the U.S. route sign. So there is that uniqueness. So I just want to mention that as more of a local example that wasn't done by a municipality, but you can still find along prime business districts.
And I don't want to put Libby on the spot, but you're here. Do you have a perspective on, marking the various districts with the sub-brand? I mean,
We talked about it loosely.
I think we could hear you. I mean,
Yeah, it's really up to whatever the board decides, because there are very distinct areas, but it is a small three square mile, area. It can go either way in terms of marketing it on Ogden with that area, or Eight Corners, or downtown, really whatever the preference is for all of you.
I think part of it for me is that we have, Ogden can be such a divider to give it its own different, to give these places their own different designs, kind of calls them out as separate. And I think what we want to do is say that we are this one identity, even across these various different districts. And I mean, I think you can have sort of the same feeling if the Brookfield banner was on top, and you could just have it be wayfinding as the name of the district on the bottom, if we're looking at these examples. So you could still get that without spending all of the billing time and the energy trying to come up with 3 different sub-brands in addition. And maybe that even saves us some money just by just looking for one main brand rather than the additional sub-brands.
To clarify, the seasonal banners are part of this too, correct? I mean, the banners we're putting on the posts and,
So the banners will be affected once a new brand is chosen.
right.
The recommendation and what is going to be further scoped with the selected vendor is the styling of those banners. We have discussed it previously. The recommendation right now from staff would be to keep it to the district name with minimal graphic on the banner itself. And we can create cohesion across the brand in all 3 districts. As Trustee Hendricks just said, putting 8 Corners, welcome to 8 Corners, welcome to Grand Downtown, welcome to Ogden. Those are different business corridors, and rather than separating them through different branding styles, we can also just use the name of the corridor.
So a lot of what we're talking about here, I think across the whole town, you want the same fonts, the same colors, all that to play into it. But are we talking just the business districts? I mean, we saw there's a Parks and Recreation, emblem, we have the other ones in there. Isn't this an overall village kind of branding and not just
Right, so that
focusing?
is, that is the request, overall village branding. A village logo, a village tagline, an overall village brand and logo. And how we identify and attach that to departments, a request for that deliverable is in the RFP, but that needs to be scoped out with an ad hoc committee to understand, do we want individualized logos for different departments, depending on their function, or do we want all departments using our one village brand logo as an identity?
Well, to Trustee Klusny's point before and Trustee Hendricks, maybe it's something, once we get into that, we see what we have, because it would seem like the overall branding is obviously the bigger part of this. How do these sub-brands really fit in? Maybe they're a distraction.
I can speak a little more to this. So when Park Ridge did their update in the early 2020s, they updated their main logo, but additionally, the police department had their own logo still, and the fire department had their own logo. And what they did is, those designs didn't modify too much in this example. What was the biggest difference was the unified color scheme. So we're not having a department logo for every department. It would stick to Parks and Recreation, Police, and Fire. So there is unified design guidelines that show this is still Brookfield, but a different part of it. So the sub-branding in this example is just one example of the comprehensive sub-branding that we need to create and unify under one main logo. So it stretches across both business and government operations.
I have a question about the scope of the RFP. It seems like once we have this brand, then there's another complicated process about how to implement the brand throughout the village. I mean, everything from vehicles to this room to flag, like, so would it make sense to ask this vendor, or maybe you're viewing this as a separate project or something the department can handle, to put together an implementation and prioritization plan so we can start thinking about cost and where do we want to roll out this brand quickest? I'm just thinking, for us as a board, we would be thrilled and excited to have the brand. And then I think there'd be immediately be questions about how we're going to introduce it and which infrastructure we're going to transition first. So might it be helpful to have the consultant consider that over the course of the project?
You know, my thought is that that could be rolled into the style guide that they are delivering to us on how to use these things. And we could, as a maybe an option in the RFP, if they want to include that sort of a thing, to see, what they can, as an add-on possibly.
It may depend on the firm as well, because there's really different skill sets here too. You got your designers, and then you have your marketing strategists who
Yeah.
are gonna be more doing the prioritization of, cost to impact, right? What's the value of each of those things in terms of, are you putting it on bike racks, are you putting it on cars, like, right? So they'll be able to help prioritize that, but I think that might be more of like a strategy piece than the actual designer. You may find somebody that can do both, but if we're looking at a firm, that's what I would be looking for.
This RFP under project requirements does call out that the final document should address project definition, prioritization, phasing, implementation, and next steps. So I
It's already in there, yeah.
feel like
Perfect.
it's already built in.
But as we consider, the submissions, I would look carefully at that and what
Yeah.
their skill sets are there. Because as you point out, it's a big piece
Yeah.
of it.
It's a big inventory of where does the logo live now?
I'm sure it lives in places we don't even know.
And where to retire it.
Yeah.
So is there anything we need to add to this or take, is there a thought taking out the sub-brand or leave it in and see when it comes back? Just looking for direction from the board to give consensus to staff. And
This works for me as is.
If there's gonna be sub-brands of departments, sub-brands of districts, I don't feel like would change the scope drastically if we decide that we don't need that for whatever reason. After we looking at the logo, maybe they reduce the scope of it.
Right.
Or we ask them, could you spend the money in this other way, doing an inventory of all the logos?
Yeah. Yeah, I think pieces can be, added or subtracted as we see the RFPs come.
is that agreeable to the board? Okay.
Do you want to talk a little bit about sort of your input on the group that will sort of be handling this as an
You want to talk about the ad hoc committee as a group? That's,
Who,
We're just looking for consensus on that.
that we should create an ad hoc committee. And then, in terms of the makeup of the committee, but.
yeah, how many cooks do you want in that kitchen, Bob?
Right?
not a manageable number.
I think that makes it more efficient,
Yeah.
actually.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I do wonder, is it possible to build in one community meeting, maybe, in order to get, maybe at the very beginning, to get a broad input from the community?
The RFP does include for the consultant to,
Great.
have public
Perfect.
meetings with this. Yeah.
So the general idea of an ad hoc working committee to do this makes sense to the board? Now, the next question, the makeup of the board, or the ad hoc committee, I take it there's some staff recommendations as to that. It uses the language of representation from community organization and 2 members of the village board. I take it the community organizations, there's some thought into that already. And, someone mentioned that in other places, like the Economic Development Committee might do something like this. Is there an involvement in at least some part of the Economic Development Committee in this, or a member, or?
Yeah, certainly a member of the commission could be part of the ad hoc group. I mean, there could be other village commissions where you might want to pull members of that group from.
Okay, but are you looking for that level of detail from the board, like what we think the makeup of the committee should be, or do you have?
No, we may come back to the board with a recommendation on the selected ad hoc. Right now, our approach is to get representation across the demographics of Brookfield.
But-
Multi-generational, multi-representative schools, organizations like Little League or nonprofit, Share Food, Share Love, representation of Brookfield as a whole.
But at some point, it could be up to 2 members of the village board, and,
Yeah.
I mean, how does that work? Who picks that? Consensus? Well, when we get to that, we'll ask for who's interested, and, I don't know, we can do a lottery drawing or pick names out of a hat, or, I'm open to some formula of doing that, so.
Well,
I
President
mean, we're
Gary,
looking
maybe you
to-
look at, you know, a member of each commission. You know,
I'm just afraid that might get too if every commission in the village, that could get, Bob's point about making it manageable.
Well, but I mean, if you look at, how many commissions we have? 5 or 6? If you look at that, I mean, chamber, I mean, some of these other groups like that, but, I mean, obviously, this is a big deal. We've had that logo up there for a few years now.
I think it'd be helpful to know, maybe from the applicant or from you all, how many meetings is someone committing to for that? Like, what is the ad hoc committee? What time of day would they likely meet, and how often would they meet? And then I think we'd have a better idea of like, who's the right suggestions for that.
Yeah, and then also I think maybe an outline of whatever public outreach or public hearing is gonna happen, right? Like, I think it would be cool if we could do something at the farmer's market or something at community events, rather than asking everybody to come to this room, for example. Are there ways we can get feedback
That's a good idea.
in the community? And that way we have to worry less about exactly who's on the committee, because there's other ways that people can provide input and get familiar with the project.
That's a good idea. All right, so there's a clear consensus with the RFP and the idea of an ad hoc working committee, and we'll look for recommendations about how to stock the committee and going forward.
Thank you.
Is that all you need from us now?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, very exciting. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you again for all the work, everyone involved. Okay. That's the only item we had up for regular business. Once again, I'll open up to public comment. Is there anyone on my right side? Nope. Anybody on my left side? Steve?
Steve Sabourin. I just wanted to tag on to what Trustee Hendricks had said about getting the community involved. Right now, the RFP only says that the community would be engaged in at least one workshop. So I think that we'd want to tailor that to say whether we want to do, well, excuse me, it said that they would be involved in at least one survey, and I'm thinking, why not have a workshop? In regards to D, under key objectives, expected outcomes, when we're emphasizing community identity, let's not forget Salt Creek, especially with the markers along Brookfield Avenue or Washington Avenue. And also with the key objectives and expected outcomes, when it comes to the village seal, I think that we need to keep the seal timeless so that it doesn't expire or need updating in another 30 years. I think we also need to keep it simple and make it easily recognizable and memorable so that when you see it, it's something that you'll recognize easily. Also, the village seal should look good at both, large and small size scale. So if you've got something like that village seal there, it's fairly large, but once you go down to like a seal on stationery, you want to make sure that everything is readable. So I think that maybe that could be incorporated as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. So do we need to change, I mean, I think there's some consensus from the board that we want more than just a survey or a meeting, maybe. Is there some way to tailor that language in there that, to account for more public input, comment, because I think there's a clear direction from the board they want. And maybe
We can
early,
update that language to request more substantive community engagement.
and maybe early, I think at the point early on in the process is important too, so, okay. All right. All right, any other comments on this side? Okay, hearing no further public comment, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session pursuant to Section 2C6 of the Open Meetings Act to discuss the setting of a price for sale or lease of property owned by the public body.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, the motion to go into executive session was made by trustee Whitehead, second by trustee Kaluzny. Roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark.
Aye.
Trustee Whitehead.
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks.
Aye.
Trustee Naramatsu.
Aye.
Trustee Gilhuli.
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, we're adjourned into executive session at 7:38 PM. We're going to do executive session in this room, so anyone that's not participating in the executive session, we'd ask you to